Good morning, everybody, and a very warm welcome to our first global session of the SRT and Gulf Edu e-conference for international educators, MENA and beyond, entitled From Classrooms to Auditoriums, Addressing Application Anxiety. I can be honest here, I was really proud with my title, From Classrooms to Auditoriums. It's me, it's not ChatGPT, I loved it. Students face rising stress around university applications, navigating academic pressure, decision making, family expectations, peer comparisons. I think it's never been more important for schools and universities to work together in supporting the students emotionally and practically through this journey. And I'm really delighted to be joined today by a fantastic panel of experienced professionals, each bringing valuable insights from different educational and cultural contexts. I have four amazing women on this panel with me. We have here Colin Menicini, a head of university guidance at North London Collegiate School in Dubai. We have Sharifa Amin, a university guidance counselor at the Arba School in Dubai. We've got Cornelia Adzuesin, who is a college and career guidance counselor and a principal at Ghana Christian International School in Ghana. And as a university representative, we have Barbara Prevosti, who is the guidance and recruitment officer at Bocconi University in Italy. I believe an amazing panel. And let's dive in. I see that a few more people are still joining in. So let's start with one simple warm-up question, which is what's one application related conversation you've had with a student or parent this year that really stuck with you, for better or worse? First, let me just say, let's start with Cornelia, Colin, Sherifa, and at the end, Barbara, just to have this row of people replying. So, Cornelia, what is one application related conversation you've had with a student or parent this year that really stuck with you? Colin, maybe you can start while Cornelia
Yeah,
deciding.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's been lots of conversations this year. There's a lot of changes that are happening, and there's certainly each year proves to have so many different conversations. But for me this year, I think it's not just one, but it's sort of this overall theme that students seem really fearful to take the risk to apply to universities that they've been sort of planning on. So at school, they've been working on their list for years, working on building a profile from grade 9 and doing all the things in each academic year to sort of contribute to what their application is going to look like. And then when it's time in grade 12, there's been a lot of fear to sort of go ahead and actually put it all together and send it off. And I think it absolutely has come down to sort of the fear of failure, the fear of hearing no, the fear of all of those years of work sort of not actualizing in what they think they want. So it's been a very pronounced year for that I've experienced.
Thank you, Colin. Cornelia, let's try with you again.
All right. Hello, please, can everybody hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
we hear
All
you
right.
now.
Thank you so much. And I'm very sorry for that technical hitch. So, for my side also at Christian High, we've had a couple of students doing the applications, trying to go travel outside the country and what have you. And we all know all the requirements and the pressure that it comes with. But there is something that caught my attention this particular year. I had, of course, the valedictorian having to question herself when it came to the personal statement or what we call the motivational letters. And so she was kind of worried or anxious about the fact that was the letter good enough? Was it going to express everything about her to the admission officers? Was he going to get it in and all that? And so she was always maybe coming to me, calling the parents and all that. So what I have to do at the end of the day was to sit her down and explain to her that all that they are looking for is to get to know you, who exactly are you in person? What have been your accomplishments over the period of 4 years that you came to do the O level or the IGCSE and then the A level? So it is just your ability to express yourself that the admissions officers will be looking for. But what I realized was that most of our students, this is somebody with a GPA of 3.95, and she has to question whether she is good enough. It was quite stressful for me as a guidance counselor. And so I had to explain to her that it is not just about getting in, because she was looking for Ivy League schools, of course. She was aiming at getting into some of these Ivy League schools. And so pressure and the anxiety was over the top. So I have to explain to her that it's not just about getting a school. It's not just about getting it, but we want to get a school that you'll be able to thrive, a school that will bring the best in you, that will bring out all the potentials. And so the mom too equally was worried. Will she get it? Will she get it? What if she doesn't get it? By the end of the day, when she understood the fact that it is her future that matters, and it is finding the best fit that matters for her, I think we were able to surmount that kind of pressure. And thankfully, she got a couple of responses. And then she, at the end of the day, had to be the one to select the one that she had to go to. And she realized at the end of the day, the pressure or the anxiety she was exhibiting was not worth it after all. So for me, this has been one of the conversations I had this particular year that actually awakened something in me that I have to. There are a couple of things I have discovered that I have to do better this time with the current batch that are coming in. So this has been it for me for this particular year. Thank you.
Thank you, Cornelia. You also made an important point about the stress that counselors also go through within this moment. And I think that's a whole other topic for discussion for the next conference, maybe. But let's move on to Sharifa and her application-related conversation. Let's stick with her.
So one that really stood out to me was a conversation that I had with a year 12 student. They came into my office very visibly overwhelmed, and they sat down and they were like, "Miss, everyone around me has a dream university, but I just don't. What's wrong with me?" And that really hit me hard, because it was a reminder of just how much pressure these young people are under to have this life mapped out at 16 or 17. We spent some time unpacking this idea, and we tried to reframe Dream University into a best fit university. So I shared with her how having uncertainty is extremely normal. And in fact, it's healthy in a way, because it leaves room for exploration, which is always a good thing. We focused instead on values and what kind of life that she would like to build, not just where she wanted to spend the next 3 or 4 years. It took a while, but after a few sessions, she actually admitted that she'd never really been asked what she wanted to do outside of academic expectations, because the expectation was always to have this plan of school, university, work, and then figure it out. So it just really reminded me how important it is to give students the permission and the freedom to figure things out at their own pace.
Thank you, Sharifa. And Barbara, what about you in your conversations with students and with parents? What is the one conversation that stuck with you?
May I say all of these topics were were about to me. That sounds familiar, of course, to me, because all happened in their office as a school counselor, happen also to us as a university in a different way, because of course they don't try to be so anxious, even if we are the expert and we perfectly know exactly how it works. If I think, and I have to share with you, maybe not this year in particular, because I repeat all the topic Sharifa, Colleen, and Cornelia already mentioned, where on my Zoom or Teams meeting, I would remember, and this is a suggestion also related to parents which are not with us today, but of course counselor knows that. It was related to one, they came to my office and the parents said, I'm a lawyer. I would like that my son become a lawyer. And the student was not interested in law, of course, first of all, but was interested in medicine. And you know, Bocconi is not offering medicine. So I said, why are you here? I never said I'm wasting my time, because from both sides, our job, of course, is to guide them, to inform them in order to be very well prepared if we really know also other kind of universities in my country, for example, in Italy or in Europe or worldwide, in order to help them. But the most important thing was to convince the parents that this poor guy wasn't able to become a lawyer for the future. But I made it, eh? I made it, guy.
Thank you, Barbara, and I'm happy to hear that you've been that generous with the family, and we are definitely going to get back to the topic of parental influence. But first, I want to go to the topic of stress factors, and would like to ask each one of you to list 3 stress factors that students face when they're applying to universities. Colleen, what are your 3 stress factors? You're muted. You're muted. Colleen, let me unmute you.
Sorry, I'll start off, and I'm sure all of them will be sort of repeats, won't they? But I think a 3 that we kind of encounter is that the students' confidence in self-presentation. So when, as Cornelia mentioned, the sort of putting together a personal statement, putting together essays, putting together a list of activities, they really do seem to struggle with these questions of, is it good enough? Does it tell enough? Sort of this idea of being limited to what they're being asked to provide. So I think self-presentation. I think time and deadlines is the second one. It's sort of this sort of time management that, of course, we all struggle with at different parts in life. And I think the students especially, because they're used to being told very specific deadlines in very specific situations. And so now, especially in an international realm, they are dealing with lots of different deadlines for lots of different countries and universities. And so that can be very difficult to manage. And then I think the third is it comes a bit late in the application process, but it is the actual decision making, because we often have lots of conversations where students will have amazing offers to very different opportunities to learn and to take their lives, and to actually choose one they really struggle with. And to finally make the final decision on where they're going to commit, they really seem to struggle with, because what if always creeps in. And so I think those are the 3 I'll start us with.
Thank you. The what ifs. Cornelia, what about you? What are your 3 stress factors?
Mentioned right now, balls are also a factor for me, but I just want to add a few more. Sometimes too, there is this stress factor. You know, some of the universities or colleges may go as far as demanding for at least 3 recommendation letters. There is a school recommendation letter, there is a teacher recommendation letter, and sometimes they said a peer or a family member and all that. Some of these things are also stress factors to us and the students, and then as counselors also. And then another thing that I've discovered is that sometimes we look at these students as maybe being in grade 12 or grade 13, and we presume that academically they are there. And so they should have an idea where they want to go in future. But unfortunately, some will walk into your office and they don't even know where exactly they want to go, or they don't know what they want to do. And so the pressure from seeing their friends getting things done on their own, or making a headway in their college applications, and they are able to see, they talk to their friends and they hear that, but they have not even started. Some of these things can be really, really stressful to the children sometimes. Uh, Another thing too is that some of them have set their hearts on certain schools, their hearts and mind on certain schools that they want to go to. No matter what, I want to go to maybe University of Calgary. No matter what, I want to go to Leeds or whatever. And so when you sometimes too, they may not have the grades, or they may not something may be a reason why when they look at the requirements, they themselves can see that there could be the possibility that I may not be able to make it to that particular university. Then the stress begins to set in. And another thing too that I can talk about, I think the decision that meeting the deadlines is also another factor. And so the prompts keep coming, the emails keep coming that you have about this number of days to complete your application, especially those who use the common app and sometimes may go for early decision and what have you. You could see that they have not finished. They haven't written their statements and all that. And deadline is perhaps in March, or deadline is fast approaching. Then you see that their anxieties are all over the place. So this is the few that I have to add to what has already been stated. Thank you.
Yeah. Mentioning deadlines, I used to tell my students that applying to university is their first date with bureaucracy. They either have to adhere to all the deadlines and fulfill all the requirements, or they're just not gonna be considered by the university. Sharifa, what are, according to you, the three stress factors, most common ones?
So the biggest one, and this echoes something that someone just put into the chat, is fear of rejection. So the entire process of applying to university can feel deeply personal, and it is. It is. And many students, sometimes they see acceptance or rejection as a direct reflection of their abilities and potential. And this fear, it leads to overthinking on every single part of the application, from personal statements to predictions and everything else in between. And in that moment, it is because students, they invest so much of their time and their emotional energy into the process that rejection can feel like a personal failure rather than just a redirection to other more suitable opportunities. Now, this increases anxiety, understandably, especially when applying to more competitive universities or countries. The second one for me would be parental and societal pressure. So students, they frequently face strong expectations from their parents and from their social circles regarding where they should apply and what they should study. And these expectations, they can sometimes overshadow the students' authentic interests and passions. And it leads to internal conflict and internal stress. Social media is not making this any easier. In fact, it intensifies this. As students, they're constantly exposed to people announcing, oh, I got accepted into this, or I'm going to this, and bragging about offers and scholarships. And it makes them feel like there's a need to catch up or match these achievements. And in a lot of cases, this pressure, it leads to students maybe applying for courses or universities that they might not be interested in or might not be a good fit for them, simply to satisfy some kind of external expectations. Third one, and I think this was brushed on by my colleagues earlier, is uncertainty about the future. A lot of students, they feel very overwhelmed by the magnitude of decisions that they're expected to make at such a young age. And this sometimes happen without having had the chance to explore their interests fully. So this pressure to choose the right path can make the process paralyzing, especially when students are told that these decisions will shape the rest of their lives, which is not always the case. So for students who are not sure or are still choosing or still discovering their own passions or career goals, this uncertainty breeds anxiety, which leads to procrastination and this overwhelming fear of what they think is an irreversible mistakes. And then without the reassurance that it is okay to change your mind, it is healthy to change directions, it can sometimes lead to rushed or poorly informed decisions.
I agree with it. I think that even us as adults that we're supposed, to be experienced, we are also worried by these things, whether it's the right decision, the right pathway. So it's only natural that students worry about this. Barbara, let's move on to you from the university side. What do you think are the three stress factors?
As we already said, and Sharifa clarified this point, the last one, uncertainty, is absolutely the first one I noticed as well. In particular, of course, when we talk about content of the program, for example, because we know we live in this world where things happen in a day, into seconds, whatever. And so they don't know if it is better to choose business, in my case, or global law or political science, because these are completely different programs. But I would like to benefit of the opportunity to have very good knowledges in three of these fields, which is kind of impossible, of course, because you have to choose at a certain point. And then if I'm thinking about related to uncertainty, is also related to the career opportunities. This is the other aspect I noticed that, because they don't know, okay, they said, okay, I'm studying this kind of program. Which kind of career opportunity I have? Which kind of salary? I just, yesterday we did, 2 days ago, sorry, Saturday, we had the open day, for example, and I was sitting in a classroom following a specific program. And one of the students was very direct, asking to the program director, could you please tell me the salary when I'm graduated from this program? Because the factor of money is also important, which is important. And I saw also in the chat to asking for scholarships and funding and stuff like that. They are very stressed on this point. So this, the first one. Timeline, absolutely. I totally agree with all of you, because on the other side of the desk, they have to keep in mind different deadlines for different universities are applying in different universities around the world. And as the last point, I would say, let's say, parents again. Parents are the decision makers sometimes. So this is a very stressful factor for them, really. And also, if I can say, for us.
When I was preparing the session topics, I was talking to a counselor and she said, oh, parents are the greatest stress factor for students. And parental influence is definitely something that we are going to discuss more into deep tomorrow. But still, Barbara, let's remain to you still. How can, according to you, schools and universities partner to better manage parent expectations and involvement in the application process, while at the same time safeguarding the students' autonomy and authentic choices?
Let's say, first of all, I'm Italian. And I'm dealing with a lot of Italian parents, which are the worst, in my opinion, to be honest, comparing to the international one. But again, it depends on the nationality. Of course, they are pushing them a lot. And they are very stressful. They're always asking, they are, as I said, a decision maker sometimes. Thanks God, not all the time. They are the one who are asking for a one-to-one meeting. So I have collecting a lot of leads from parents, and we were obliged, for example, since year now to have a database specific for them, not only for students, because we have much more leads coming from parents than the students. They're asking for one-to-one meeting, and so I'm meeting them sometimes. I don't see students at all. He's busy, she's busy, she's doing horse riding championship or golf championship, whatever. They are not studying that time, maybe. So I pretend, in my case, okay, if I see you, okay, I can talk to you, but I pretend to have a one-to-one meeting with students as well, because I can talk about the student's life. I can talk about content of the program with them. And then what I notice, of course, as you perfectly know, is a new generation, also for parents. So we are not talking to parents who don't know what we are talking about because they are graduated, maybe they have a very good job in a very high position worldwide, maybe they work with international market, so they perfectly know what we are talking about. So they have very interesting question, I would say. Absolutely. But these questions has to be also listened to by the students, in particular in my case.
Thank you, Barbara. Before moving on to the rest of the speakers, let me just tell the attendees, I see your comments on the chat. I see some of you have questions and I'm going to get back to them. Jennifer Vukalic has an interesting question. Jennifer, I'm going to go back to your question in a bit, but let's just finish this part here so the speakers can give their answers. Colin, but the same question, how can schools and universities partner to better manage parent expectations and involvement in the application process, while at the same time safeguarding the students' autonomy?
Well, I think it boils down to communication, and it boils down to communication quite early. As soon as you can start having conversations and sharing information and sharing resources, I don't think there's such a thing as too much, because there will be different parents that will filter out the information that you're sharing. There will be parents that will be drinking in everything that can be shared. And so you kind of want to find the sweet spot to where everyone is feeling like they have information. We have to remember that parents are always acting, I mean, we're all acting on best interest of the students, but these are their children, and they're wanting their children to have an experience that is better or easier, whichever the adjective is, but have something better than they had. So we tell our kids, and one of my colleagues has a brilliant anecdote, but she says, your parents are like the board of directors at the company of your life, right? And you're the CEO. You should be the person running the company. You should be the person that's making a lot of the strategic decisions. But if the board feels that you aren't sharing enough information, don't have the right resources, aren't heading in the right direction, there will be a hostile takeover. So what can we do to avoid the hostile takeover? And the anecdote gets some laughs. We share it with the students, we share it with the parents, but the idea, it kind of works well. Usually when we see in school the parents that are coming in and wanting lots of meetings and making a lot of the decisions and speaking on behalf of the children, it's usually because they don't know all the information. It hasn't been shared with them. They're worried that maybe their child doesn't have access to information. And so we then just share the resources available, show them the platforms that are available, show them the different ways that applications are processed. When someone talks about a personal statement, what it means, what it might look like. When we're talking about the process, it's online. Very likely they didn't do the university application online, so it's a new world. Even if like Barbara said, I think our parents are coming with a lot of experiences, but they might not be shared. And so communication really does help with a lot of it, and just getting everyone working towards the best interest of the child, because that's why we're all coming into the conversation.
Yeah, I agree with this. And you just reminded me. I had a parent who studied in the UK, and she said, I'm very well familiar with the UK. And I said, okay, so you know how to deal with UCAS. And she was like, what is UCAS?
What?
And then okay, maybe I've been in the UK a long time ago.
We don't want to be reminded how long it's been, too.
Yeah, true. Cornelia, how about you? About how do you manage the parental expectations versus the student's autonomy?
So I think I side so much with what Colleen just shared, that communication is key. Communication is everything. Like he rightly said, the parents are the board of directors, and then you, the students, you are the CEO. And so they are spending the money at the end of the day. They are the ones spending the money. So they want to be able to be sure they are getting the right value for the money they are spending on your education. And so what I've also observed is that in as much as most of the universities these days are able to provide a lot of information on their websites. We would also need them to avail themselves for one-on-one discussions. This year, as around March, thereabout, I had to guide a student to prepare for a school in Paris. And so, although there were a lot of information on the school's website, we needed somebody we could talk to. We needed somebody to guide us because we read the info, but we are still not getting what we wanted to. And so we made a few mistakes, although as a counselor, it is assumed that I should know some of these things. Unfortunately, I was also lacking. I couldn't understand what was required for us in some of the aspects. It took time before we could get an African representative for that particular university to explain a few things to us. By that time, we had already finished the application and I've submitted it. And I wish that we had gotten somebody or something like her earlier to explain to us because the school is in different regions. And so we being Africans and an English-speaking country, coming from an English background, there was a particular school we could have chosen. And this morning, I share with so much sadness that my students prepared so much for the interview. We did everything. Everything looked so fine. I sat with her during the interview, but unfortunately, she didn't get in. And as of now, I am still dealing with her how to be able to cope with the rejection and all that and all that. But I only wished I had somebody to talk to. I don't know whether I have the permission to cite an example on this platform with a university, with one of the
Cornelia, we
universities
hear you very, very low.
Okay. Hello?
Yeah, now we hear you better. It's just at some point you kind of your voice fades.
Okay. So I was saying that when it boils down to the communication, I don't know whether I can give an example with a particular university that does so well when it comes to the communication and is working for us. Am I permitted to?
Yes, yes, go ahead.
Yes, for instance, the University of Calgary, they do so well. And so they have a WhatsApp platform which is live all the time. And they have a rep, I think Steve Kelly or something. The platform is very interactive. The moment you put your questions over there, they will come and answer as soon as possible to guide you. We were in March, almost getting to the deadlines for the application processes. But because of the availability of information on this platform, when you ask a question, they come to answer to it. I was able to guide a student, and in this April, she got in, unlike the other school in Paris. So I think the communication will be able to bridge the gap in everything that we do. So that's what I
Thank you
think.
for
Thank you.
this. Communication is key. And Sharifa, finally to you with the question about the parental influence and how do you manage this?
So I agree with a lot that was said by Cornelia and Colleen and Barbara that we do need to acknowledge the role that parents play, that they are one of the most, if not the most influential voices in students' lives. And while a lot of times they often come from a place of love, but also concern, and they have their child's best well-being at heart, whether it's financial stability, employability, or future success. And all of this is fine. The problem is that sometimes this translates into pushing students into a certain directions to what they think is quote unquote safe or prestigious. And sometimes these choices do not necessarily align with the students' goals. What we can do, what schools and universities could do, is proactively engage parents early throughout the entire process through detailed and dedicated information sessions, and not just about the application logistics, but long-term importance of student well-being, career satisfaction, intrinsic motivation. Parents, I feel, need to hear the word best fit more. They need to hear that a best fit university, not necessarily a top ranked one, leads to better academic engagement and mental health outcomes. I say to parents all the time, we are on the same page. We want the same thing. We want a happy, successful son, daughter of yours. We just need to agree on what that looks like. And at my school, one of the ways we do this is we run sessions for parents where we guide them through how to ask open-ended questions, how to engage with university reps, how to ask questions that encourage explorations rather than imposing their own dreams on their child's future, which sometimes parents are not always conscious that they are doing. How universities can help is they can help amplify this message by reinforcing it through outreach, by communicating with parents, virtual sessions, and open days, just to name a few examples.
Thank you, Sharifa. And while we are at you, we have a question from Jennifer Vukalic, who is representing a school in Kuwait, and she actually prepares students who are 9th and 10th grade. And then there is another counselor at the school who works with 11 and 12 graders. So Jennifer here says, parents in certain institutions can often force students into a certain field. What can they start doing from early as their sophomore years to really understand where they'll be a good fit? And I'm asking this question to you because you touched upon it just a minute ago. So what would be your question to your answers to this?
I think that at that age, self-exploration is very important. At that age, students have been in school for a long time. They know themselves well. They know whether they are more artsy in nature, or do they enjoy STEM and science subjects more, or are they more humanities based? That can start giving a direction of what kind of pathway they would be interested in. I think there's a few factors that go under best fit. It has to be something that students enjoy. It has to be something that they are good at. So I think that finding a good fit in career-wise, or not even before university, because there's two pathways into this. There's go to university, do something, study something you enjoy, and then see where that leads you. Or there's think of what kind of life you want to have, what kind of career you would like to have, and plan backwards. There's advantages and disadvantages to both, but that's a different conversation. But in either case, what we call good fit has to start with the student themselves. So I think self-exploration at that phase is very important, because when they know more about themselves, what they enjoy, what makes them happy, what kind of values are important to them, and what kind of problems they want to solve in the world, that's a beginning step to see what kind of life might be good for them, because then essentially it's a match.
Thank you, Sharifa. We have, surprisingly, we just have 20 minutes left, and we are in the very beginning of the questions. So I'm just gonna move to the question. I wanna discuss social media a little bit, but before that, Claire here in the chat was asking about how long counselors support their younger students, but I'm very happy to see that another counselor replied with her own experience. So at the end, if we have some time, we're just gonna touch upon this topic of long counselors at schools and how they manage to work with the students from an early age. And now, Barbara, I would like to start with you on the question of social media and peer comparison. My question is, how has social media changed the landscape of student stress during the application season? And what practical strategies Bocconi has implemented to help students manage this process?
The answer is a lot, of course. So we were talking about communication a lot right now. So communication is fundamental from university to school counselor, from school counselor to university, passing through students, parents, ICEs, and whatever who's working in the education field, in my opinion. So if we are not, let's say, clear enough to explain how it works to study in a particular university, will be such a big problem, because students don't read, parents sometimes don't read, they forgot to do that. So it's really difficult sometimes to find which is the best way in terms of communication, let's say, to spread the voice about university. Saying that, which is a very general thought I have, a communication with social media is fundamental right now. I'm a boomer. I'm on Facebook only, for example. I'm not able to communicate with students on IG. With also my student ambassador, okay? But even if I'm an IG account, which is I'm not using for Bocconi, to be honest, but I see the IG Bocconi account is they have a lot of followers. I have a very good student ambassador. They are doing a lot of videos. They re-recording whatever they do during the day, or the classmates, or for example, the working hours when they go to professor. So I would say are very, very important. We cannot miss it at all, because, for example, when I'm presenting Bocconi in person, in particular, but also online, we just developed, for example, an app where they can practice the Bocconi test. And I'm used to say, guys, in the meanwhile, you are laid down on your sofa, on your IG account or X or whatever, download the Bocconi app to prepare also Bocconi test, because this is another way too. At that time, maybe I keep their attention because I was mentioning something they are used to do every day, every single section. And thank you so much to all the schools are not allowed, they don't allow students to have mobile during presentation, because it makes sense to have much more attention on us. Otherwise, they are starting, not because maybe they are doing something different, this is not my message, because they are already on the IG or Facebook or whatever, TikTok, social media, checking the university's videos. That's the point. So yeah, communication, social medias, and we are developing a lot at Bocconi in terms of marketing activities. I try
Thank
to
you,
be short.
You mentioned the Bocconi test, and I'm gonna get back to this in a while, because it used to increase my stress factors as well. Preparing
Okay,
students.
Naya, okay.
Colin, how about you? Social media and peer comparison as well, their effects on students.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time with this because I think Barbara touched on it. Everything is online, and I think the students digest most of their information through social media, whichever platform it is, that's where a lot of the information is coming from. And what we do are some sessions both through the University and Careers Department, but also through the well-being and social wellness, just to make sure that students realize that what you're seeing on social media, that's really very cultivated for a particular point or purpose. And so I think the story that you use is that a lot of students will come in and be like, "Ah, Miss, I saw so-and-so, and they were opening up their email with their acceptance to XYZ University," or I'm going to film something, I think I'm getting my offers, or I've got an email, but I haven't opened it yet. I'm going to create content, I think that's the phrase. And what we don't see is the content that doesn't cultivate the image that we want to project, right? So they're not watching the videos of the students opening the emails where they've been waitlisted, or where they've been rejected, or where they had an incomplete application because they forgot to check their email and forgot to add information. So what they're digesting is just this top percent of sort of content that is not the typical experience. And so we go through a lot of work sort of understanding, and this is for anything. This can be for subjects, for research in class. You know, how do you find good information? How do you, when you're on social media, how are you digesting the information that's going to help you? If you spend an hour watching videos of people opening acceptance emails, how did that help you on your journey? You know, so spending the time that you have in a way that's valuable. It's a resource that's really important, and we don't discredit that, but we've got to continue to spend time helping kids realize that the tools they have are only as valuable as the user, right? I can't make the math on my calculator if I don't know how to turn it on. I can't write an essay on my computer if I don't know the language, the vocabulary, the content, the form for feature. So it's really important to just keep spending time with that. And some of that looks like we've got students that do the sessions. They host the sessions. They go through and they do sessions for their peers, by their peers. Because if I'm like Barbara said, I love Facebook. I'm like, okay, everyone, when you're on your Facebook, they look at me like, lady, you're kidding me. But that's not the platform that they're communicating on, right? So where I can give them information about finding resources, then we need the collaboration so that we know what it looks like on Reddit. What does it look like on TikTok? What does it look like on the platforms that they're using, so that we can be navigating and finding the information that helps us positively create the journey in the direction we want to go.
Thank you, Colin. That reminded me, yesterday I was eavesdropping on a conversation of teenagers in the park, and one of them said, "Oh, I'm not watching TikTok videos anymore. I just watch Instagram reels." And the other one said, "What are you, my mom?" I felt a bit old. Cornelia, how about you? How about the peer pressure and social media? How do you deal with this?
I just want to share something quite funny. Yeah, a lot. And sometimes too, when the children get accepted into some of these universities, you find them, you get to discover on social media when they tweet, when they put it on LinkedIn and on all the social media platforms that they use. And as an adult, as a guidance counselor, sometimes too, I see my colleagues, other counselors, putting together a cluster of university logos to which their students have been accepted into on social media. And guess what? I asked myself, so how about me? And it creates some sort of in me as well. When am I going to get all these acceptance from all these universities for my students, so that I can also be able to create such a cluster and also be able to share? Then it dawns on me. So then, if as an adult I feel this way, then how are my students feeling if they see their colleagues posting their acceptances on social media and they have not even received an offer yet? And so that has also given me something to think about. And I feel that when it comes to that, our students need to be well equipped with the resilience skills. They have to be resilient. They have to be emotionally resilient to be able to deal with, perhaps it could be a rejection you didn't get accepted in, perhaps it could be a delayed, it could be anything at all. Sometimes they get overwhelmed only to realize that the offer came actually, but it landed in the spams and all that. And so, but they need to breathe. They need to calm down and be able to think through, what if it is what it is that I am not accepted? What if maybe about all the 5 or the 6 that I applied to did not work out? So their resilience skills will now come to play, so that in as much as the social media is good, there's resilience skills to be able to help them to be able to cope with whatever they are seeing on the social media and be able to wait in turn for their chance to come, so that they can also, together with other people, celebrate the offers that they receive. So I think we should also be looking at the resilience, building the resilience in our students as we prepare them for the university as well. Thank you.
Great relation to the topic of resilience, which makes me want to turn to Sherifa specifically, because during our previous conversation, Sherifa, you mentioned you had a student who got into something like an application paralysis, perfectionism paralysis. Can you tell us a bit more about this?
Do you want the story or how we
Briefly, the
overcome?
story. Just briefly,
Briefly,
the
the
story.
story.
Not
Okay.
the overcome part.
Briefly, the story. Year 13 student, let's call him Ben, for instance. He had the grades, he had the university list, he was on it, did all of the work, had the profile, had the extracurriculars, and it was just a matter of completing applications. And then he froze. He started missing deadlines. He started missing meetings, missing internal deadlines, I mean. And then when we chased this, and also from a well-being point of view, it turned out that he was paralyzed by perfectionism. And it ended up in him avoiding the entire process, which can sometimes happen because they think of applying to universities as this very big, scary task that is just done overnight. But one trick that helps students overcome this is understanding that this is coming from a place of fear, not laziness. Understanding where this perfectionism is coming from, which is rooted in a fear of not being good enough. And then when you can deconstruct this, you can start working through these emotions directly with students. And that is way more healthier than just avoiding the task altogether. So one trick that I've used in the past that I've found successful is I ask students to intentionally write a bad first draft. Just write anything down. Get words on paper, not to get them right. And then from that, it helps you just break the first step. And this removes the pressure of perfection, and it just gets the creative process starting. And it breaks down the tasks into micro tasks. So instead of that, I need to write my entire personal statement, which will not happen in a 20-minute session. It becomes, okay, write 3 sentences about a meaningful experience. Breaking down chunks, bite-sized actions leads to reducing the feeling of overwhelm, students being overwhelmed, and helps slowly build that momentum. And I feel like working with teenagers, just reminding them that procrastination or avoidance, it comes from a place of fear, which is not always true. So if we frame rejection as redirection, I think that is very healthy, and it helps soften that fear, and it encourages action over avoidance altogether.
Thank you, Sherifa. Barbara, I promised I'm going to be back with a question on the Bocconi test. We have very short time, so briefly, Bocconi test is obviously something that worries both the students and the counselors. What advice would you give to counselors when they're preparing their students for the Bocconi test?
There are some simulation tests on the website, at least one. We're pushing a little bit our admissions officer to put it another one, so in order to help them to practice a bit, and they can again download from their mobile, students, I mean, the app which is called The Faculty, with a lot of exercises, so they can practice a bit. And then good luck.
Thank you. This was a little bit ominous.
Just to be very fast, then for whatever counselor need more information, please feel free to reach me out via email, and we can set up another Teams Zoom call or all of you, for all of you.
Thank you. Because we just have 5 minutes left, I have one last question for all of you. But before that, I see here going on discussions about the long answers. So I want to ask Angela Bukhoff if she can send me a few notes by email of what she's doing, so that I can send those notes to the counselors who ask her. And then next year, we're definitely going to have a session on long answers and how they manage the workload with even the younger students. And my last question for all of the participants is something very briefly that I want from you. But based on today's conversation, what's one thing you commit to trying differently when supporting students through applications next season? Colin?
Ooh. Well, I think each year it looks different, you know. So this is always a great question because each year you kind of go in with your plan of attack, and then as soon as the cohort comes in, it's like, right, we must adjust quickly and as efficiently as possible. I know for me next year, and I sort of spoke about this a little bit earlier. One of my department priorities is the parents earlier. So, you know, we've always had workshops for grade 10, grade 11, grade 12. These are kind of for us in the IB pinch points, grade 10, where they're making their choices for the diploma program in the IB curriculum. I think it's almost for us too late when those are the conversations starting. So we're making a priority with our grade 8 and 9 next year. With the parents, and it's going to be sort of a long-term study to see what happens. You know, 5 years from now, when we've started with our grade 8 parents and giving them the university preparation sessions that we would typically be giving in 10 and 11, giving those to grade 8, giving those grade 8 parents access to sort of some of the resources that we sort of saved for later years. I want to see what the impact of that is. And I suspect it's going to create a lot more time for us in more meaningful ways in grade 10 and 11, where in the past we may have been educating and starting the conversation. Now I suspect that the conversations will start to change and free up our time a bit, so we can be doing things a bit more efficiently. The questions are more directed. It's not starting from zero, because, you know, in the international realm as well, you will have parents that are navigating the Canadian application system, the UK application system, the US application system, and then we're going to be applying to Bocconi, you know. So when they're juggling all these different systems, if they're starting it in grade 10 or 11, they become overwhelmed quickly. So that's something we're going to try, is to sort of start earlier, so that way, hopefully, it makes it less stressful because we're learning less new things towards the end of the game.
Thank you, Colin. So you're gonna start early. Cornelia, very briefly, just a few words on what's the one thing you're gonna change for next year's application cycle to reduce stress in students.
I think I resonate so much with Colleen. Starting early is everything. Fortunately, we are a boarding school, and so we get to engage more with the children, and then with the parents online. And so we have gone as far as year 7. We are including year 7. And so from the second trimester thereabout, we are going to, and we are trying to also inculcate this into, we have a session called a mentorship session that happens once a week. We are trying to inculcate some of these topics for discussion during the mentorship sessions to see how far the children will be able to accept them. And so we'll groom them from level to level, get them to fully understand the different careers in there. And then by the time we begin to look at their interests, looking at extracurricular activities, what are some of the things that you could do. Sometimes some of them go into so many extracurricular activities, and then it ends up having a toll on the academic performance. So you can keep it low, maybe keep the numbers down, and be able to also meet your academic performance, so that together, holistically, you can be able to get into your best school. So we are planning a curriculum to be able to guide us from stage to stage, so that by the time they are getting into the grade 10, grade 11, they can be able to do majority of the things on their own. Because mind you, we are a population of about 1,400 students in school. And so there's a lot of work on our hands. And so we will start early. And then we'll use our curriculum that we are putting together to groom them, so that they can better do most of the things on their own with our supervision, with our guidance. And so when they get to the grade 12 and all that, voila, they can just be able to take off like that. So we will start
Thank
early.
you. Thank you, Cornelia. Sharifa, the same question for you very briefly.
So very briefly, I agree with starting early, but on an entirely different topic, which would be normalizing rejection. Talk about it early, talk about it often, and encourage plan B. That's not just a backup, but actually an exciting alternative. That way, if plan A doesn't work out, they still have something to genuinely look forward to. Key message would be rejection is redirection, and doesn't mean you're not good enough. It's not a reflection of your self-worth. It simply means you're being guided towards a path that will ultimately serve you better.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Barbara, would you like to contribute to this? Is there one thing that you would like to change or implement in the next year's application cycle?
If I have to give you an official answer, to be honest, I was thinking during this conversation to these question, I don't know, because we do, let's say, more or less everything in advance, communication, social media, whatever we already discussed it. If I have to say something to students, I would suggest, in order not to be stressed, to start yoga lessons, to be honest. This is just for fun, because this is exactly what they need. So starting from this point, I'm not talking about admission or Bocconi test or SAT. To be honest, do a yoga session, because it should be very nice for them, to be honest, and parents as well.
Thank you very much, Barbara, and thank you to all of our parent panelists today for this rich, compassionate, and thoughtful discussion. I know that we have many other things that we could cover, but we don't have the time for this. But what's clear is that the application anxiety isn't just about admission; it's a multi-layered and a whole challenge for the whole community. So I'm grateful to our speakers. And now moving on to the rest of the meetings as part of the e-conference. Thank you again for being here, to the attendees as well. And I'm going to see you again during the rest of the e-conference. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.